Okay. All right, we should be recording now. Okay, we have some people that are on the call that haven't joined us in the past. So I'm going to call the names that I see here that are not the usual representatives and ask you to introduce yourselves. So let me get the list of, so Gary Lewandowski.
Hi, trustee of Village of Flower Hill, sitting in for Frank Janice. And I think actually our deputy mayor, Randall, is here as well. So
Yes,
we have great representation from Flower Hill.
Always have. Flower Hills has been a great partner of ours. So then now I'll call on Randall Rosenbaum.
Yep, as Gary mentioned, Deputy Mayor of Flower Hill.
Glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me see who else we have here. Stephen Kleiss.
I'm just here as a guest. I'm a member of the Waterfront Advisory Committee over here in Manhasset Bay, but I'm not representing them. I'm just collecting information.
Okay, yeah, you've been on with before, but just not that often, so.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And the rest of us are representatives of the various municipalities. So with that, I think we'll get started. As you see on your screen, this is the final agenda. We've got quite a few items on it, so I would like to get going. The first item always is the review and approval of the draft minutes of the previous meeting, which was October 14th. I assume that those of you, first of all, the only those who are official representatives of the committee can vote. And so is there any discussion on the minutes from the last meeting? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Kevin,
Tom spoke first, I think. So Tom moved, Kevin second.
yep, Kevin Brown from North Hempstead, a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye,
Okay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, thank you. Administrative matters, 2020 member dues. I'm happy to report we've received, we had 2 outstanding municipalities with their dues as of the last meeting, which was Town of Oyster Bay and Nassau County. Town of Oyster Bay has paid, that money's in our account. And the Nassau County, the claim is in the county controller's office. According to Dan Fucci, they received it on October 26th. And that usually takes about a month before it gets through the controller's office and check is issued. So we expect to be able to collect all the dues by the end of the, I'm sorry, I have to let somebody else in. By the end of the year.
Eric?
Yes.
Okay. I was in the waiting room, sorry.
Yeah, I just let you in. I'm sorry. It's kind of hard
Okay.
to talk and see that at the same time. Okay. On the proposed dues for next year, I did take a look at our anticipated income and our anticipated expenses and where we are with our current, account balance. And basically, our annual expenses total about, say, between 75 and 80,000 a year, and our dues are about 90,000. So basically, I'm suggesting that, and this is just unofficial because that we will address this at the January meeting according to our intermunicipal agreement, but to keep the dues at the same level that they have been for the last several years, and it basically covers our expenses and with a little bit of extra in case something happens. So we can discuss that more at the January meeting. We do have our grant from Marcelino grant from state DEC. is expiring at the end of this year. You'll recall that there's actually two grants that were consolidated into one. We received a total of $250,000 that would be split between the three North Shore Protection Committees. And while we in Hempstead Harbor have spent almost all of our $90,000 share, we do have about $7,000 left, and I can discuss that in a minute. We still have only spent about half of that $250,000 because the Manhasset Bay Protection Committee hasn't submitted any claims yet due to situations largely related to COVID and being able to go out to bid and that. And there's still some outstanding expenses from the Oyster Bay Cold Spring Harbor Protection Committee, which is basically being handled through Friends of the Bay. So we're going to be requesting a one-year extension. And I've been told that that should be no problem at all. So I'm hoping that that does go through. I'm about to submit another reimbursement request from them. And that should take, probably a month or two for that payment to be made. But we should be okay on that. I also wanted to mention that since the last meeting, I've been invited by the city of Glen Cove to participate on behalf of the Protection Committee in a advisory committee called the Glen Cove Western Gateway Advisory Committee. The Western Gateway is basically the area on the south side of Glen Cove Creek, basically where all the ball fields are, going out to Shore Road, and then there's a little bit on the other side of Glen Cove Avenue, basically going up to the firehouse and down to the Boys and Girls Club. And they received a grant to look at that area and see how vulnerable it is to coastal flooding, sea level rise. There's all in anticipation of doing some improvements in that area, because obviously you don't want to sink a lot of money into something and then have it inundated with floods in the future with the increasing rainfall and sea level rise, et cetera. So with that grant, the city has hired a consultant called GZA that has prepared a vulnerability assessment that just report that came out just in the last couple of weeks. So we will be meeting in, I think, the first week in December to go over that. I'm in the midst of reviewing the study now, and obviously one of the impacts could be impacts on water quality, due to everything that might happen if it's not, done correctly. So I don't know if Ann or Rocco would like to add anything to that, but that's just a brief overview of the committee and what's happening with that.
Sure. I mean, Eric, you did a great job of summarizing the effort so far. In addition, let me see if I can get my video going. There I am. In addition to looking at, the sea level rise and resiliency and potential impacts in the future, we're also taking a look at things like pedestrian and transportation connections in the area. It's almost like a little micro study for that area. And like you mentioned, it does include a portion of Glen Cove Avenue as well, the ball fields. It just stops short of the sewage treatment plant. So it does include, those DPW yards there on the south side of the creek as well, Tiegerman School, the animal shelter, that whole area there. And right now, what the advisory committee has is the existing conditions analysis. And by the time we have our next advisory committee meeting, which I anticipate will be virtual, it's set up to be virtual, we'll be going over that existing conditions analysis, and we'll also be taking a look at GZA's preliminary adaptation strategies as well at that point. So, I anticipate this going on probably another year overall to get through our deliverables and what we're taking a look at as part of that effort. So, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Eric. I thought it would be a good idea to have this group represented as part of that advisory committee.
I have a question coming through.
Yeah, we hear you.
What kind of improvements do they have in mind? Is there any general description of it?
Yeah, there's nothing really set in stone that's been defined as part of the study. We have an existing conditions analysis. We're in the engineering stage right now of improvements to the ball fields, and also potentially expanding upon the city's recreational facilities on the south side of the creek. But that's really the only thing that's in any kind of engineering phase right now.
And I just want to let you know that, in reading over it, I saw there was a lot of rainfall data in there. And I know we, through Carol DiPaolo, have quite a bit of data on rainfall in the immediate area. And so I did reach out to her. I wasn't sure whether I could share the report at all, but I did share the few pages that had some rainfall data from, I think it was Farmingdale and Mineola, just to see if she could compare to that. And, so I could provide maybe some more local input.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, no, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Carol. I think that the consultants view the body of data available, but if there's something that's more Glen Cove specific, better local data that we might have, please send it. That would be great.
Okay, we'll do that. And Anne, I also have a question. So about the area that's being studied. So what's going to happen with all of the industrial uses, and when will it happen?
Yeah, it's not a land use study, Carol. It's just an environmental study. So nothing's being proposed from a land use sense as part of the study. We're taking the standpoint that the industrial uses are going to stay. But I think that we're going to have our consultants take a look at some various land uses and potential impacts to different types of land uses in case there's changes that happen in that area in the future. But this study is not a land use study. It's not recommending any particular land use changes. It's really just taking a look at existing conditions, climate resiliency, potential ways to mitigate impacts, and providing some recommendations and strategies. Originally, we had applied for a grant to do more of a comprehensive planning study of that entire area, but we only received the resiliency portion of that grant.
I see. Thank you.
No problem.
It's good that you're looking at resiliency. I mean, it's certainly an issue that's going to become more and more forefront, and it's nice to be ahead of it. And we're very appreciative that you're looking to us to help, give some input.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. And the last administrative matter I wanted to bring up, obviously we need to, because this is our last meeting of this year, is proposed meeting dates for next year. And basically I followed pretty much the same format that we had this year, same number of meetings, Wednesday evenings. January and March are critical because January we decide what our proposed dues are, and then they're reviewed between January and March, and then in March we adopt them. And any municipality that wants to drop out can before that March date. We've never had anybody do that in the 25 years we've been around, 26 years. But that is the opportunity if you wish to. And then we decide on the dues. The others are pretty much parallel what we have done, where we basically take the summer off and take December off, which are busy months for most people and hard to get people to meetings anyway. So if anybody has any objections to those dates, I try to stay away from, religious holidays and other holidays. So take a look at that calendar. I assume we really have to approve at least the January 6th meeting tonight. The rest we can finalize at the January meeting.
When's the
Unless
boat
I hear
ride?
any objections, we'll just assume we've tried 3 or 4 times already. Well, maybe next year we can, if there's no more COVID and the weather finally cooperates with us. All right, that brings us to water quality matters, which is really the heart of what our whole committee is about. So I'll turn it over to Carol to give a little update on the 2020 to 2021 monitoring program. Are you there, Carol? Did we lose Carol again?
I'm on. Do you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear
Okay,
you now.
sorry. So I was going to say the 2020-21 is what we're in now. We just completed the regular season's testing on October 28th. We are still in the process of entering the final data, and then we'll be compiling that and then getting ready to put that together with the rest of the rain data, the bacteria data, nitrogen data, and preparing for the annual report. We have already started the winter shoreline monitoring, and that started last week. That will go on until about mid-April, and the focus is still on the Parahouse Drain outfall at the bottom of Glenwood Road, and we'll do checks at the Scudder's Pond outfall on a monthly basis. Let's see, for the UWS, I always start out with my usual caveat that this is a Coalition to Save Hempstead Harbor program, but we run it at bi-weekly on different days from the time that we're doing our core program for Hempstead Harbor. It's part of a Long Island Sound program to monitor embayments for the Long Island Sound estuary on both sides of the Sound. That program ended also in October and will normally start up in May. This year, of course, we had a delay with COVID. For the Flupsy water monitoring testing program, this is a Tappan Marina testing program. Again, this is a Coalition to Save Hempstead Harbor project, working in concert with the town of Oyster Bay, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Steve can add to the aquaculture project that the town of Oyster Bay has taken on for 3 sites around the town. Tappan Marina was one of the 3. And we had started last year to do a testing program of the marina because we really didn't have a handle on the actual water quality conditions within the marina. Unfortunately, last year we didn't get the Flupsies in. This year we did, trying to do that again with COVID. There were delays in the Flupsies getting there, delays in the seed clams getting there. The stock that the town thought it would have was much less than we were hoping for, but we were still able to get the program off the ground, and we did the testing from the time we had proposed in May and completed that also in October. And we're in the same stage. We have to compile the data, do the final report. Do you want to add anything, Steve, about what happened with the seed stock that was growing in Tappan?
Yeah, I mean, we grew the shellfish to a size of averaging 12 millimeters. Then we moved it out by November 5th. So we had put them in on July 31st when we got them, and then we took them out on November 5th. So in that time, it would have been water filtration by both clams and oysters in the Tappan Marina. We
ended up having one Flupsy with about 50,000 oysters, We were happy about that. We weren't expecting that. We were thinking it was going to be all seed clams. So that was a good development. And we'll see. What was pretty certain that we're not going to see water quality changes for the short time that the seed stock was in the marina, but it was interesting to continue testing while they were growing. And Steve had the advantage of being able to compare growth rates at Tappan Marina with the other two sites in which the Flupsies had been installed, both at Tow Bay and at Roosevelt Park in Oyster Bay. And our Tappan stock, they were doing pretty well, right, Steve?
Yes. So what we found was that Tow-Bay had the fastest growth. Those actually grew to be like about 2.5 millimeters larger than any of the North Shore sites, which was interesting. And also Tappan and Teddy Roosevelt actually ended up with around the same growth rate.
So,
Steve, what size did they start out at?
We treated them at 2 millimeters.
So they went from 2 millimeters to 12.
Yes, and Tow-Bay went up to 15.
one of the interesting things that our testing was able to help with was noticing a difference in growth rate among the three Flupsies, or well, we started with three Flupsies in Tappan, and one area, for a number of reasons, had a different pH rate, and we found that by moving that Flupsie, that those clams caught up with the others. So that was interesting to see how sensitive they can be to different amounts of different levels of pH. So that was a good thing to have the testing program be able to figure out what were the differences, what could be causing a difference in growth rate, and that was it, evidently, because they caught up. So that was good.
That's been an issue in Long Island Sound in general. As pH levels, become more acidic, it's harder for the shellfish to grow their seed. I mean their shells, because it's basically calcium.
That's right. It was interesting to see that there would be such a difference. It was a slight difference, but it made enough of a difference within the marina. You wouldn't think that, that would be something that would have an effect, but it did, and it worked out that we could figure it out. And then we're up to, excuse me?
I was going to say that should be something that we should let others know about, because when you're trying to decide where to put a Flupsie, maybe people should look at what the pH levels are.
Mm-hmm. Well, we still have a long ways to go with looking at the data, and we're going to be sharing ours with Steve. Steve has made some, different charts to analyze the difference in growth rates among the different sites and also within Tappan. So together, we can pull that information together and see what story it's telling us. So we'll do that. Let's see. And then the Scudder's Pond Weir, I haven't heard anything more, Eric. I don't know if...
Neither have I.
Okay. All I know is that the level is very high. It's maintained, that high level since last time I spoke with you. So...
Yeah, but I've been looking
and
at
then
it.
the 9...
It's very high. It's going over the top all the time.
I know. And the last big rainfall we had, too, things were exacerbated by all the leaves seemed to drop at one time, and those storm drains were clogged. So there was flooding around the pond on the roadway. But then the 9-element plan, I haven't heard anything more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been in touch with Dan Fucci, who's coordinating it for the county. He hasn't heard anything more. The last I knew, They were waiting for the contract to be signed between the state and Stony Brook. And I guess there's been issues of, probably related to COVID and getting that done, and then also the state budget. So I think everything's sort of on hold until that can be finalized. Yeah, although Dan did send something out to all the team on the 9-element plan last week about some progress that's being made down in the Bay Park on the South Shore. But other than that, no new news on that.
Mm-hmm. And then as far as bacteria issues with the powerhouse drain sub-watershed, I think this came up at the last meeting that over the summer we were looking at the bacteria, noticing some differences. Mostly, it's usually the same pattern for that powerhouse drain, and that is that when we're picking up direct samples, bacteria levels are extremely high, and of course when the tide is up and the samples are mixed with harbor water, the bacterial numbers are lower just because of dilution. But what we were noticing was that there was a difference in which types of indicator bacteria were rising and falling, and it seemed that most often previously we were getting higher fecal coliform counts than we were, not just higher, but significantly higher than the enterococci. And it seemed to flip around over this season, and we were looking at the last season to see what could be causing this pattern. Anyway, we tried to make some comparisons with the data, and Michelle and I had spoken with Eric. We met in August with Steve to try to figure out what was going on. But it is, whichever indicator bacteria is the issue, it's still the same problem, despite the fact that in February, 37 new or retrofitted storm drains with filtration capacity for both bacteria and nitrogen were installed by the town of Oyster Bay. We thought we were seeing a change, and we weren't sure whether it had to do with a difference in that was caused by people during the shutdown for COVID. More people were home, but on a different schedule. But things seemed to differ for a while in March, and then they were up again. So we really can't see any reduction in bacteria levels, and that actually prompted Eric and Steve and Michelle and I to have more, try to look into this further to see what possible other alternatives could help the situation other than the storm drains. Steve provided information on the total number of storm drains that feed into Glenwood Road, right? Steve, it was 275? What was it?
260, I believe.
I can't remember. It was in that range. Only 37 were installed with the new filters. So it would be logical that it wasn't having a great impact because of the number of other storm drains that would have to be addressed. So Eric contacted Fabco, and we met with representatives from Fabco to take a look at that storm drain to see if there was a possibility with dealing with end-of-pipe solutions by putting some kind of filtration unit toward the end of the pipe, although it's a huge spillway, actually. It would have to be dealt with before it gets to Shore Road, especially with the work that's going on now with sewer lines being installed. So that meeting led to Fabco reps agreeing to take samples that we would collect and have those samples tested at their lab, both for levels of bacteria that they were getting, and at the same time, we collected a sample that we sent to our usual lab, Nassau County Department of Health lab, to find out first whether they're getting the same numbers, but also then they would take their samples and run them through the unit that they sell, the filtration media, to see whether it would be effective in eliminating, as they claim the product does, eliminating the amount of bacteria. So there were some unusual findings with the levels of bacteria. We still have some questions. There was a reduction in both enterococci and the other indicator bacteria that we look at, fecal coliform. Not quite the same units that we pick up, but I guess we're still looking to see what are the next steps for Fab Code to think about that, and for on our side also to think about what could possibly be the next steps going forward. And we still have to clear up some questions, and those have to be compiled and sent to FABCO. Eric, would you say that's pretty much what's gone on with that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, they did suggest that maybe another round of sampling. We weren't sure whether they were offering that, at their cost, which they did the first time, or we would have to pay for that. But, I think that, the more data, the better. They also mentioned that, anything is possible in terms of end of the pipe filtration. It's just a matter of, getting, whether it's cost effective. They can't design something themselves, we'd have to get an engineer to take a look at it and see what the flow rate is and the size of the pipe and how much space would be needed and that kind of thing. But that's a possibility. I mean, it certainly makes more sense in my mind if this filtration media works and greatly reduces the bacteria, to do one end of the pipe and to try to put these kind of filters in on 260 storm drains that then have to be maintained. So, I mean, they do have, which is what Glen Cove is looking at Crescent Beach is a unit that basically, breaks down the bacteria on the cellular level. It's not really, chemical or, physical filtration feature. It just actually destroys the bacteria. So that's something I think we need to look at. I mean, if we have costs, we can possibly pursue grants for that. But obviously we can't do it without first of all demonstrating the problem, which I think we've done, demonstrating a possible solution, and then knowing what the costs are. But as everybody knows, when we did our water quality improvement plan, we divided the harbor into separate sub-watersheds, and we've tackled them one by one. The worst sub-watershed was the Scudder's Pond sub-watershed, and we were able to address that with a number of grants totaling nearly $3 million, and that seems to be, the bacteria levels have been much better in that area. So the second worst sub-watershed was the Powerhouse Drain sub-watershed, which we're talking about now. So I think this is going to be our next focus, is to try to zero in on what exactly we should be doing, can do, because we've got a demonstrated, problem with bacteria in that area.
Okay, and then for the next item on your agenda, addressing the bacteria issues in Glen Cove Creek. This summer's monitoring was showing that we had higher levels of bacteria through most of the stations in the creek, which are all near outfalls. With the new bulkhead, there are new culverts or outfalls that were included, obviously, on that new bulkhead. And we noticed two of them are always discharging water. So we couldn't figure out what was going on. We have our usual pipes that we're looking at, and those would be the STP outfall on the south side of the creek, and then two pipes west of that. two of those pipes have been the subject of unusual discharge over several years, many years. For one, the larger pipe at the corner of the bulkhead has had problems with white discharge, as it had this season as well. And then the smaller pipe between that larger one and the STP outfall has had periods, not just this season, but previously. It didn't seem as many. I think we had 3 or 4 instances in which there was very strong brown discharge from the pipe that also corresponded with very high bacteria levels. Because we actually had chosen the 2 pipes west of the STP outfall and one area east of it. It's a little different now because the old docks that were there, most of them have been taken out, but we've been able to use GPS to test in that same area east of the STP to get a sense of what is the discharge point depending on which way the tide is flowing, whether it's an incoming or an outgoing tide. Generally, the numbers from the STP discharge are always very low, and it's the others that are problematic. But in addition to those being problematic and getting those higher bacteria levels in that area, we were noticing we do also, as a control, a mid-creek sampling station a little farther away from outfalls on either side, and that was coming up high, which led us to try to test, and also at the head of the creek, higher than usual. There's been a lot going on in the creek this past season with dredging and 2 barges working, bulkhead work going on, 2 barges laying gravel, and then we thought it was some kind of soil. Rocco had clarified that it was sand that was laid on top of a base of gravel in the creek, a lot of disturbance. So that could have contributed to the bacteria, but when we started taking samples from the outfalls, it seems that the outfalls were big contributors, including the new ones, in which we had, as I said, observed constant flow of water. We're still trying to figure out what is going on with the outfalls on the south side of the creek. We ended up, having a meeting with Nassau County and also the operators. They just started this year, Suez, of the sewage treatment plant, to see what was going on behind the sewage treatment plant and near the transfer station. Rocco had been there, Eric, Michelle and I were there, Dan Fucci, and also Rich Coutinho, the superintendent of plants for all of Nassau County, was there. We're still not sure of what the source of these discharges are. It prompted, a request for finally getting a camera up that pipe to see possibly if there was a break in the pipe that somehow led to commingling of STP, or not so much the plant itself, but there's an area where trucks go in to discharge from their trucks directly into the plant, and to see possibly whether there was a break in the line that could have ended up going out of the other pipe. We didn't get the results back from that camera work that was done, so we're waiting for that too. And I don't know when that would be coming. I don't know if you've heard anything more, Eric or Rocco.
The last I heard from Dan was on about a week ago on November 10th. They had done that. They flushed out that pipe and in the process found that there was a lot of mud in there. They had to flush it out in order to send the camera in there. And so that could be a source of, some of the brown discharge, although that's...
No, I'm pretty sure it's not.
Okay.
It was a different color brown. I have photos. Rocco saw what was coming out. That did look like sediment, what was flushed out. I was down there when that was being washed out of the pipe, and I noticed that there was more than, I think I had mentioned to you, more than the usual flow, and Dan had confirmed that that's when they were doing the camera work. So
He said
something else must be going on.
at that point, they hadn't finished it. There was one more section that they needed to do. And they were expecting to do it that day. And then once they do that, then they have to await their report. So my guess is that they did it, and now they're just waiting for the report. And unfortunately, Dan could not be in the meeting today, but be interesting to see whether we find any break under where the trucks unload, because that's very possible. Those heavy trucks go over this one piece of concrete, and they could have crushed the pipe underneath with all that weight, and then there could be some leakage that gets into there. So
I don't know whether the animal shelter has been discounted.
they were supposed to also do a dye test at the animal shelter, which is nearby, because certainly doesn't take much bacteria to get in the line to see where those storm drains in the floor drains, say in the animal shelter, drain to. It's very possible they're connected into that pipe, but that's something I followed through a couple times, and Suez had agreed to do that, and I haven't heard any back on that. I don't know if Rocco knows any more.
No, I was waiting on the report as well from Dan, but I haven't heard anything either.
The other thing that came out of that meeting with Suez and the county is that there are times when Carol's out taking bacteria samples right by the discharge, and she sees the Suez people taking samples at the same time from above. So we suggested that we share data, and so we can compare, and that is now starting to happen. They did send us the first set of data, and we did have some questions because there was some nomenclature on there that we didn't understand, and it was basically regarding to the UV levels that they subject the bacteria to. It wasn't bacteria levels themselves, but we are starting to share that data, and gives us something else to look at. I don't know, Carol, you have anything else to add?
I think that's it. Still waiting to see whether there'll be any testing on the other culverts that we were sampling at. And we'll have to follow up on that as well, because, it's difficult to understand. I can only say that things are getting worse in the creek, not better. So, we have to really find the sources of the trouble here.
And I did suggest that the last time when we met with them, it was in person. I did suggest that we convene another meeting. It can be virtual, where we can at least see and talk to each other. I haven't heard back on that request yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the next. And the next item is the Nassau County Septic Grant Update. This has been about 2 years in coming. As you may know, Nassau County received $1 million from the New York State Environmental Facilities Corp. To give grants to homeowners and also small businesses, if they qualify, to install nitrogen reducing septic systems. Right now, there aren't any in Nassau County. Suffolk County has over 500 so far installed. And these grants would cover up to 50% of the cost, or to a maximum of $10,000. The county is in the process of amending its agreement with the Nassau County Soil and Water Conservation District, of which I'm on the board, to administer that program. And that was expected to be approved by the county legislature this past Monday, but there was a delay because of some paperwork that needed to be submitted before it could go before the legislature. That has, I think, now all been submitted as of today. I'm not sure if it's going to make it on next Monday's calendar, but that's imminent. And then the county can pay the district funds that's received in order to do the administration. But regardless of that, we are all moving forward. We expect to have a webinar with local municipal officials in the city of Glen Cove, the villages, the 2 towns, and county legislators on the first week in December. We're aiming right now to do it on Friday, December 4th, to explain the program and to take questions from the municipalities. This is new to everybody. Building inspectors have never inspected these before, and it's possible that municipalities may have to amend their code to permit these kind of installations. But we're anxious to get going, and at least it's a starting point to get the discussions going. And you'll be hearing more of that. Those invitations have not gone out yet. The county will be sending the invitations out. We're still putting the final touches on it, but there's a lot to this program, and but it's interesting. One thing I did learn today, which does may have a bearing on the powerhouse drain situation too, is that in Suffolk County they're finding that with this, more people staying at home with COVID, due to COVID, that they're finding a significant increase in the number of septic systems that are failing, because the septic systems are being subjected to a lot more use than they may have been designed for. And they've also seen a great increase in the number of applications for replacing the septic systems with these new, innovative systems. So that's something that may happen. It's also, the county looks like it may be getting a second round of funding from the state to continue these grants, but that's, not finalized yet. So this may be good. We're looking to basically to prioritize certain areas where there's a very quick travel time in the groundwater to the bay, so that we get the most bang for the buck from these funds. So stay tuned on that, and you'll be hearing a lot more, I'm sure. I just wanted to back up. I did miss one thing under the administrative matters, and that is we had applied for a grant to the Long Island Sound Futures Fund for our 2021 to 2022 monitoring program. Those grants, they have decided who's getting grants, and I'm not at liberty to make any kind of announcement, but all I can say is that we have been invited to participate in the award ceremony, which will take place on December 7th. So you can read into that what you want. We did apply for $75,000 for that program. So and that brings us to the organizations. So Nassau County Soil and Water Conservation District. I can speak on that. The district has been still working partly from home, partly in the office, being very diligent about the COVID restrictions and precautions, and but still moving forward. Yesterday, the district held a very good webinar on invasive species. It was pretty well attended, and a lot of good information is out there. If anybody's interested, that is recorded, so it will eventually be on probably the district's website. So other than that, the district is involved, as I mentioned, with the septic grant program, and is working with a number of different organizations on different projects through the what we call Part C funding. Part of it is funded the Carroll's FLUPC monitoring program, and the restoration of the greenhouse at Cedarmere and others. There's about 12 different projects that are being managed through funds provided by the district. Friends of Cedarmere, Tom, do you want to say anything?
Yes, sure. Today we signed the agreement with Gardeners Foundation, and we got a big grant from the county. So the water mill is going, working water wheel and machinery inside the building. That's going to be a reality, perhaps as soon as the end of, fall or late fall of 2021. So that's we've been working towards that goal for quite a while, and now we have the grants in place. So I think it'd be a big, if we can use it to attract visitors and to teach, water power, hydropower, and other environmental subjects.
The other thing, Friends of Cedarmere, is similar to the Soil and Water Conservation District, has resumed some activities, had two virtual programs in the last couple of weeks. One on poetry in time of crisis, and compared what was happening during the Civil War and Bryant and his poetry and his editorials, and compared it to today. And then the other was a dance visions event that was filmed, and I didn't participate, so I can't comment much more about it. But
Maybe you need to brush up on your dancing skills.
It would take a long time for that. Okay. Municipal updates. I see Steve appears first on my screen. Steve, you want to talk about Oyster Bay?
Yeah, not much to report other than, as we talked about, we put out 3 million clams and 250,000 oysters on November 5th. Yeah, and that's the biggest update we got.
Okay. Who wants to go? Kevin, North Hempstead?
Yeah, sure. The only thing that I have to report is the dredging at Roslyn Pond continues. There's not going to be any additional planting until next year for stream bank restoration. Pretty much the project is mostly wrapped up, although not officially, because we're going to continue planting into the spring. But everything right now is on cruise control. Everything's mostly done.
I did want to point out. Yeah, go ahead.
Kevin, did we meet the goals for this is Ian Zwirling from Roslyn Village. Did we meet our dredging criteria that they originally had anticipated? I was having a hard time getting a hold on the facts about that.
What criteria are you talking about? The amounts?
In other words, originally the big pond was going to be 30,000 cubic yards, and the small pond was going to be 5,000 cubic yards. So I'm just wondering if we got close to that or halfway to that.
I don't think the lower pond or the larger pond was supposed to be 30,000. I think it was supposed to be 14,000, and we achieved the number that we were allowed to do under the first contract.
Okay. How about the smaller ponds?
Small ponds, we also met the contract amounts. We'll be doing some additional, but we met all the original contract amounts.
Okay, great. When you say you'll be doing some additional, you mean now or later?
Now, it's ongoing.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
Yep. That's all I have to report, Eric.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that I was contacted by a Newsday reporter yesterday about a development project along Shore Road in Port Washington. I wasn't sure what they were talking about when she mentioned it to me, because I hadn't heard of anything recently. But turns out it's for the project that I was contacted a couple of years ago to just discuss informally, north of North Hempstead Beach Park, but in one of the areas that was, sand and gravel operation where they want to put condos in. And apparently the application was submitted to North Hempstead, although I don't know much more than that. But apparently, it's out in the public, so I'm sure we'll be hearing a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I can provide, Eric, this is Kevin with North Hempstead. I can provide a little bit more information after inquiring, after talking to you. Yes, it was submitted last week. There's a lot to it that has to be filled out. There's going to be a lot of variances needed. And they're asking for things that we haven't allowed ever. So we will wait to see how certain things proceed forward with it. But there was an actual submission, I want to say last week and a half ago.
Kevin, what were some of those things that they asked for? Is that public?
No, it's not public.
All right, so you'll tell me later.
Yeah, I can tell you later, but let's just say from what the code allows, there's going to be variances that are needed. I guess I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't speak off the record on something like this, so I'm just unfortunately not going to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
We know roughly how many units they want to put in or requesting, right?
I don't know that information yet.
Eric, you had some data on that, I thought.
Yeah, I think I only know what the reporter told me, and who knows if that's accurate, but I think it was something like 170 units.
Okay.
I could find the sheet, Eric, if you want it. I think I saved that.
Eric, I found out about this proposal also. It's 176 units, 7 stories on a 17+ acre parcel.
Right, and I believe it's 55 feet tall or something like that. That's all I know. I mean, I did meet with them, you know, a few years ago. The company is out of Nashville. They build very high-end condos, and I think they also wanted to have some sort of esplanade that connects to North Hempstead Beach Park, you know. But that's all I know.
Plus, they want a marina. And evidently 2 stories of underground parking.
Bad in a flood. Eric, I just sent that thing you had sent us back to you, if it makes sense. You can have
Oh,
it.
okay, thank you. Okay. Moving on, City of Glen Cove. Who wants to take that?
Ann, are you still there?
Oh, do you want me to do updates first, Rocco?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, sure. Let me see if I can get my video going again. Or you guys could all hear me too.
Yeah.
We see you. Yep.
All right, so I gave an update on the Western Gateway earlier. Our East Island Tidal Gates project went out to bid. We did receive 3 bids. It is over our grant amount, so right now we're negotiating with the lowest responsible bidder, and I hope that we'll have a resolution to that over the next month. Again, that's that DEC funded project to help water quality in DeSource Pond by repairing the tidal gates and also providing some rain gardens and other green infrastructure elements in that area. I know from Rocco from the previous couple of meetings that I may or may not have been on, that there was some discussion of the barge in Glen Cove Creek, specifically the one that's on the north side of the creek, towards the head of the creek. And what I will tell everyone is that barge is not owned by the city or the IDA or RXR. That barge is owned by Nassau Ready Mix, which is a operating business. And, you know, I'm very aware of the situation with the barge, the fact that styrofoam is coming off the barge. It's something that I've discussed with the mayor. I've also called the property owners myself to discuss with them as well. It seems like while they may not have been that busy in some prior years, they have some new contracts and they've been busier than ever, and they've been actually utilizing that barge on the creek for their work. And, you know, the fact that there's styrofoam coming off the barge is not okay, and it's something that they're aware of. I know that our city harbor patrol has been pulling some styrofoam pieces out since July. My understanding is those pieces are keeping the barge afloat. Long story short, the mayor and I have been discussing this and some potential options. There are some potential options. Given that we don't own the boat, it gets a little bit complicated, as I'm sure some of you know, due to the maritime law requirements and otherwise. But I just want everyone in this group to know it is far from being ignored. It is something that's been a thorn in my side now for years. And what I will say is I think progress is being made with some of the talks and negotiations with the various parties. And I'm hopeful that we're going to have a resolution to this and a path forward by the winter. So I just wanted everybody on this call to know that it's not something that we're turning a blind eye to. It's quite the opposite. It's just a complex situation all around.
That's good to know, Ann. Thank you.
No
You know,
problem.
I have more recent photos also. When they say they're using the barge for work and that it's on the north side of the creek, they had another barge there. That's been removed. But what we refer to as the derelict barge, at some point this season was pushed up away from the bulkhead up onto the sandbar. I don't know if you were
Yes,
able
I was
to
aware
see
of
that.
that. Yeah, no, I was aware of all that. And when I inquired into all that, I could not track down who did that and why. All I know is that it was moved back to the prior location and it is still being utilized by Nassau Ready Mix.
I can't move. It was smashed up on that sandbar, just so you know. But I'll send photos. And somebody else went up the creek a week ago and couldn't get around it. But I can talk with you again about this.
Yeah, send me what you have, Carol, please. I mean, the derelict barge that I'm aware of, I mean, as far as I know, is still tied up at the site at Nassau Ready Mix.
Nope, it's on the sandbar, all the way pushed up.
And when did that last occur? Because I know that it happened sometime earlier in the season, but when?
Yes.
Okay.
That happened earlier in the season. As I said, there's been a lot going on there, and another barge brought to the north side of the bulkhead, and then that was moved.
Well, there's a barge in use right now for the dredging. There was a barge in use.
Yes, I know. Those are two barges were also used for dredging. They had cranes on them and were working in the creek. So that's an addition. You know, that's separate. Then Ready Mix evidently had their barge right below their site. And then this other barge that's been a rusty tub for years and breaking apart was somebody was able to push it, took a tug, I guess, had a tug just push it up on the sandbar, and it's just smashed. I mean, I don't know how they'll ever get it out, except in pieces. I'll send you photos.
Well, what I do know of the situation is that the barge that's derelict and spouting styrofoam is going to have to be removed by hand. That's my understanding.
Right.
It's going to have to be dismantled by hand. And I've gotten some cost estimates, you know, associated with that work. But Carol, why don't you send me what you have? I do want to review everything. I want to review everything again. I'm going to be on site on Friday. I'll walk by the areas in question as well and just do a new site visit. But again, I want to be clear on which barges we're talking about and what. So why don't you send me, and again, I'm going to continue to work on this issue until we get a resolution.
Thank you.
I just can't promise that there's not going to be some legal issues as we move forward, given that we're not the owner of these vessels. So we will do the best we can to get it resolved as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Rocco, do you have anything else to add for Glen Cove?
No, I think Ann's got everything.
Okay. Moving south, Tom, you have anything on Seacliff?
Well, I think what you told me is that they seem, well, I also make observations because they're just working so much on the sewer lines going up from the development down by the Swan Club. It seems they seem to be doing horizontal drilling with drilling mud and the whole 9 yards to put these. You said they were, there's a pair of them now?
Yes,
One of them is
two
for,
4-inch lines.
and it's some kind of a return line for the pressure?
Exactly. Yeah, I had heard they were side by side to allow, in case there was a breakdown for one. But we ended up, actually, Eric and I were down there when we saw a hose going from the street to the harbor, which alarmed me. So went up to the workers and asked what was going on. And it was a staff person, a driller from a Connecticut company that was employed. And he explained that in order to have that 4-inch line work, that, wasn't a gravity line until it got to the top of the hill, they needed a return line to increase the pressure to make that work. So that's what that's about.
I also saw them running a hose over the retaining wall. What were they doing there? Rinsing out their mud tank or something?
No, they needed water to operate their equipment, and they were getting it from the hydrant.
Oh, I thought it was going down something. I thought I saw a hose going over the edge.
It was, I guess. Yeah, we saw that too.
It draped down, and then it came back up and went along the road further north to where the work site was. So. But I think what you're going to mention, Tom, is I saw that the village of Seacliff had some extra money, so they are extending the areas that they're hooking into the sewer line, the gravity sewer line. So a few more streets have been added. So I think the county had some money from the county money left over. So very positive sign.
Right.
How about Roslyn Harbor? Ally, you got anything to report?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't have anything to report.
Okay. All right. Ian, how about Roslyn?
Things in Roslyn. Kevin went over all the dredging. We have the grist mill moving along. Our $3 million project has ballooned into a $6 million project, mostly over prevailing wage issues. And I have no doubt that Howard's going to finish the project eventually. Other than that, I can't really think of anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
You say they've doubled the cost of the project?
Yeah, Howard explained to me that the cost ballooned from $3 million to $6 million.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I have no doubt he's going to finish it. He spends 45 to 50 hours a week on it. Howard Kroplik does, and he's on a mission.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, though.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Flower Hill, Gary or Randall, you have anything to report?
I know of nothing to report in Frank's absence.
Right, and then how about Sands Point?
I'm still thinking back. I think I used to go to that derelict barge in high school, but.
You mean?
When it was a bar. Eric, the only thing of minor interest is the consortium of about the 8 private beaches on the peninsula here started meeting, and it looks like it's going to come together. The first thing on everybody's mind, though, is things like school taxes on pieces of land that can't be developed and have no students. So we might get around to talking about the water and other things at some point, but right now we're going to start with taxes.
These are parcels that the beach associations own.
Right, and anywhere from organized nonprofit organizations that own to kind of groups of people that get together who have beach rights and try to, act together. And there are things that would affect us, like this group, like the debris that washes up, especially the substantial debris that washes up, and the people that wash up in the summer.
Well, I think if those parcels are owned by a not-for-profit, they don't pay property taxes anyway. It's just if I guess if they're just a loose consortium, not incorporated.
Right, there seem to be just about every different permutation of organization. So the goal is to try to rationalize those and pick up the best from each organization.
As far as the debris that washes up, you know that we did have one joint cleanup of the harbor year before last. We were all set to do another one this year, and then the COVID hit us. So
yeah,
once we're through this COVID thing, we certainly could talk about another joint, cleanup, with and include Sands Point if the village is interested.
Yeah, there'd be huge interest in doing something, especially for things that volunteers can't do with plastic bags.
Right. I mean, that's the idea of our program. Things, the bigger stuff that you need to get by boat, or you need a crane or something to actually remove it, and dumpsters and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Boats halfway submerged in sand and pilings and things like that.
All right. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. Does anybody else have anything, other business they want to bring up?
I wanted to ask you about the poaching signs.
Yeah.
Anything come up on that?
I did write to DEC and request them. I haven't heard anything back. Have you, Kevin?
No, I was gonna follow up and ask you if you received anything or how the letter was received that you sent.
No, I haven't heard a thing.
All right, well, keep us updated, I guess, if you hear anything. If not, we'll have to go back because I was gonna raise this under other business before Tom got to it.
Yeah. All right.
I know you put up a sign there.
What's that, Tom?
Come again?
I noticed that Kevin's walkway has a sign about poaching clams.
Oh, I haven't heard that. That's news to me.
It was kind of half washed away, but it was there, like, or buried under some debris, but it was near the north end of the trail.
Okay.
Also, notice you have people down there feeding cats, which I guess is a common occurrence in vacant land or open land.
That's a problem in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if North Hempstead has a trap, neuter, and return program. A lot of towns do, where they capture the feral cats and neuter them, so ultimately brings the population down. But
Maybe that's what happened to the quail.
Yeah, everything ate the quail. But just to follow up, the town does have a program for that. But we were hoping that now that Tom was allowed to bring his dog on the trail, maybe the cats would go away.
The dog died. I'm sorry, Kevin.
You got to get a new one.
Right. Kevin, also at the last meeting, I think you were going to try to get in touch with together with Flower Hill to talk about the storm drain program, because you were interested in maybe resurrecting that. I know that I was contacted by Fabco, in regard to that grant that town North Hempstead has. They're anxious to either get that going or have the funds used by somebody else. So anything happen on that?
I brought it to the attention of the administration of the town. They have not yet acted, and the same issues that were there previously are still there now. So I don't know what the next step is for me to do, except for the elected officials to make a decision.
Okay, because I understand from what I'm hearing indirectly is that the county is very anxious to finally spend those funds one way or the other. So a little more.
I would hope so. I wrote the grant in 2006.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have any other business? If not, it's 8:20. I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays and all the holidays coming up before January 6th. And thank everybody for all their work for this year, and look forward to working with you next year, and see you on January 6th.
Okay, bye-bye, and thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Have a safe one.